Hello, Robins. I think this will be the last of our Hodgehegs today. I think we'll get to the end of the book, but don't worry, I've got something good for Friday as well. So, did you think of anybody who can stop the traffic to allow you to cross the road safely? Well, I thought of a policeman or policewoman and a lollipop lady or a lollipop man. I couldn't think of any others. I wonder if you've got any ideas. Anyway, so Uncle B said there are humans like that. I saw one once when I was out during the day. Not something I often do. He was a big man dressed in blue with a tall domed hat on his head. He just held up his hand and everything stopped while some humans crossed the street. Once they were safely on the other side, he waved the traffic on again. Max pondered this. So, he said, there might be lots and lots of small humans who have to cross the street by day. Uncle B nodded. And the big humans, Max continued, they'd worry about all the small ones getting across safely. Oh yes, just like hedgehogs. So there simply must be a special, perfectly safe daytime crossing place for small humans. Now where on earth could that be? So that's one person that can help you across the road safely. You tell me, Max, you tell me, said Uncle B. I will, said Max, I will. Max could hardly wait for the next dawn. Something inside him said that today he would at last be successful in his quest. And outside him, every one of his 5,000 spines tingled with excitement. The more he thought of his conversation with Uncle B, the more he felt convinced that the answer to the problem lay with the small humans. Their crossing place must be the safest. Follow them and he would find it. He waited and waited until the family were fast asleep, and then, blinking in the unaccustomed sunlight, he went along the path by the side wall to number 5A to the front gate. He didn't go under it, but waited, watching beneath it. Already he'd learned that you could tell the age of humans from the size of their feet. That's very clever. And he settled himself to wait patiently until a pair of small ones should come past. When at last they did, he was about to go out and follow, but then another pair went by, and then several pairs. And then, as the pavement filled up with school-going children, dozens and dozens of small feet went walking, dancing, skipping, and hopping past his gate. All of them were going in the same direction, to his left up the road, which would take them, he knew, to the end of a row of houses, past the factory to the red man and the green man. Was that, after all, where small humans crossed? He must follow. He must know for sure. At last, when it seemed to him that no more feet were coming, Max crept under his gate and set out. Somewhere ahead he could see the tail of the procession, and he hurried along after them. He had passed the last of the houses and reached the factory entrance when he saw that the crowd was taking no notice of the changing red and green men. They were going to a spot further along the road, and they were crossing over the road there. He ran on under the notice max speed 5 miles per hour sign, and he wasn't far short of it until he was close enough to see exactly what was going on. And oh, what a scene it was! Oh, what a scene it was, he told the family and Uncle B that evening. There was this great big human, it was female, I could tell by the voice, and she was dressed in a long white coat, and she had a black cap with a peak, and she carried a long pole. On the top of the pole was a big white round disc. It had an orange rim and black marks on it. A magic wand it must have been, because she walked out into the middle of the street and held it up, and all the traffic stopped dead. He paused for breath. Then what? Said Pa. Then all the small humans went across, and the great big female just stood there until the very last one reached the other side safely. And all that time, everything stood absolutely still. Buses, lorries, cars, motorbikes, not one of them dared to move an inch in fear of the great female and her magic wand. Where did the small humans go, Max? Asked Uncle B. Into a huge building, said Max, and I hid myself and watched all day, and at the end of the afternoon they all came out of the building again, and there was the great female waiting for them in her white coat and her black hat, and she waved her wand again and saw them safely back across. I tell you, it's the ideal place for us. The huge building's right next to the park. Nothing would ever dare touch us if we were under the protection of that great, powerful human. But I don't want to spend the daytime in the park, said Pa. Setting out in the morning and coming back in the afternoon, that's no good to me. I need a good day's sleep. You could still get that, old hog, said Uncle B. You could go over in the morning, find a nice place to lie up under the bandstand, let's say get your 8 hours, have a good night's hunting and come back the following morning. Do it once a week, perhaps. You could take your wife and the girls. It'd make a nice outing. Oh, please, Pa, please, please, cried Peony, Pansy and Petunia. Pa considered this. One of us ought to try it first, see if it works, he said. And if anyone's going to try it, it's me. Not without me, said Ma stoutly. Why not let me go, said Uncle B. After all, I've had a good long life, and if anything goes wrong, there'll be no one to miss me. Oh, yes, there will, cried all the family. Look, said Max, you don't know which way to go, how to get there, where exactly it is. None of you can go without me. Well then, said Ma, why don't we all go? Very early the next morning, 7 spiny shapes emerged from under the front gates of numbers 5A and 5B. Can you see them all? 6 on one side, 1 on the other. They set off up the road, passing garden after garden, from many of which, like 9B, a hedgehog had set out on a journey to the park, never to return. If only they could succeed again. Henceforth, the street would be forever safe for all hedgehog kind. They passed the factory and the automatic crossing with its little red and green men, and came at last to the spot where Max had seen the great female with the magic wand. There she is. Opposite them, across the street, the school clock showed 6. The hedgehogs concealed themselves in a doorway and settled down to wait. At 8:15, the lollipop lady arrived. Even the earliest children never appeared before past, but she liked to be in good time. She stood stamping her large feet, for it was a crisp morning. She smoothed down her long white coat. She settled her black cat firmly, and then, grasping her staff of office, its circular disc bearing the words, "Caution, children crossing," she stood at attention at the curbside, ready for the first comers, while the early rush hour traffic roared past. Never, for the rest of her life, did the lollipop lady forget the sight that now met her eyes. Coming along the pavement towards her were 7 hedgehogs in single file, one behind the other. "Surely you're not going to school," said the lollipop lady when they reached her. The noise she made meant nothing to Max, but he advanced to the edge of the curb, his nose pointing eagerly across the street, and the others lined up behind him. "We wish to go to the park," he said. "Kindly stop the traffic." But the noise he made meant nothing to the lollipop lady, but his intention was as clear as day. Raising her magic wand on high, the great female strode into the middle of the street, and at the sight of her the traffic meekly halted. Then, before the astonished eyes of those fortunate enough to witness this historic occasion, there walked across the street a slow, solemn, dignified procession of hedgehogs, all crossing in front of the waiting car. At the rear was Uncle B, shepherding before him Peony, Pansy and Petunia. In front of them was Ma, in front of her was Pa, but at the head of the file they marched behind that pioneer of road safety, Victor Maximilian St. George, a name to be remembered forever by hedgehogs the world over. "Tell us the story of the first crossing, Mummy," little hedgehogs would plead at bedtime, and then they would listen, enthralled to the tale of Max, the hedgehog who became a Hodgeheg, who became a hero. And always the mothers ended with the same words, and they all crossed happily ever after. I love that story, The Hodgeheg. Dick King-Smith is a brilliant author, and I've got a shorter story for you for tomorrow. And one thing I noticed in that story, they talked about all the children walking to school, and they mentioned a number, and they said dozens and dozens. I wonder if you could find out how many a dozen is, and it's spelled D-O-Z-E-N, dozen. Let me know if you find out.